This is Uprising. I'm Sonali Kohatkar. You can now watch Uprising on Free Speech TV, which airs on Dish Network Channel 9415, DirecTV Channel 348, and on hundreds of part-time cable affiliates and on Roku. Two major corporations, McDonald's and Costco, have just announced that they will no longer distribute chicken that has been treated with antibiotics. The companies are responding to a growing awareness of the overuse of antibiotics and its links to ill health. Not only are animals in the conventional meat industry routinely treated with drugs to increase yields, doctors have for years overprescribed antibiotics to treat illnesses, many of which don't even benefit from the drugs. Retailers have flooded the market with antibacterial soaps, cleaners, and more, playing to our collective germophobia. To be clear, there are lethal bacteria that can and do kill us and need to be eliminated. But the reality is that for much of human history, we have coexisted with bacteria and have evolved to need germs in our bodies and our environments. Cutting-edge science is increasingly proving that stripping ourselves of bacteria can lead to the rise of antibiotic-resistant superbugs. And it can also make us as individuals develop a host of familiar modern diseases. We turn today to Dr. Martin Blaser. He is the director of the Human Microbiome Program at New York University. He has studied the role of bacteria in human disease for over 30 years. He's the author of the highly reviewed and acclaimed book, Missing Microbes: How the Overuse of Antibiotics is Fueling Our Modern Plagues, which was released last year to wide acclaim and which is just now out in paperback. Welcome to Uprising, Martin Blaser.
My pleasure to be here.
Before we get to the effects or the sort of unintended negative effects of antibiotics, can you explain how important microbes themselves are to our human body? I think many of us still don't appreciate that we are literally crawling inside and outside with millions, billions, trillions of these invisible living creatures. How much of our bodies do they inhabit, and what do they help us do?
Most of the human body is microbial cells. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, there are also viruses. Those cells outnumber our human cells. And the point is that they are ancient. We have had, ever since there have been animals on this planet, which is more than 500 million years, they've had residential organisms calling them home. And we're no different.
Now, so let's talk about let's talk about the antibiotics itself, which when we take, we kill microbes. Sometimes we kill bad microbes or pathogens that can hurt us, but often we end up with a sort of scorched earth approach that where we're killing off too many microbes or the wrong ones. What happens with when our microbes get killed? What sort of ill effects can they have on our bodies?
Well, let me just go back a little and say that when a person takes an antibiotic, whether they take it by mouth or intravenously, that antibiotic gets into the bloodstream and it goes to every part of the body. And whenever there are residential microbes, the microbes that call us home, that antibiotic is working. And it's suppressing certain organisms, and it allows other organisms to grow up. So if you have a cut, an infected cut on your hand, that antibiotic is working there, but it's also working throughout your body. And this collateral effect is something that we're very concerned about.
And of course, we should certainly establish, I think, the history, at least for those of us who don't remember or don't know enough about the history of life before antibiotics, right? And I think one of the things that I was quite impressed by your book was that you make it really clear that antibiotics and their advent were a medical revolution that helped save and have helped save millions of lives. Can you give us that brief history of how antibiotics revolutionized medicine?
Most of us attribute the rise of antibiotics to Fleming's discovery of penicillin in 1928. But it wasn't until the 1940s that antibiotics really began to be used. And they began to be used in World War II, and they saved thousands of lives of soldiers who had infected wounds. And it became immediately clear that antibiotics could be life-saving in people who had life-threatening infections. And as a result, they were used to help people go through surgery, to have organ transplantation, chemotherapy. None of those could exist without the umbrella of antibiotics to protect people during those down times and those down cycles. So antibiotics are miraculous drugs. They are the underpinning of medicine. But we doctors have been using them more and more and more. And so it's now considered that some fraction of antibiotics, 60% of antibiotics, in some studies 80% of antibiotics, are unnecessary.